accommodation, accommodation, procedural, procedural, resistant, resistant, endeavor, endeavor, on duty, on duty, shiver, shiver, plead, plead, adore, adore, stray, stray, plunge, plunge, agonizing, agonizing, feast, feast, stutter, stutter, shred, shred, overlook, overlook, vitality, vitality, displace, displace, unfold, unfold, cowardly, cowardly, applause, applause, exclaim, exclaim, enroll, enroll, glimpse, glimpse, hue, hue, awkward, awkward, blur, blur, suspend, suspend, awful, awful, flip, flip, erect, erect, adversity, adversity, pledge, pledge, inaccurate, inaccurate, disregard, disregard, cope with, chase away, chase away, affirm, affirm, celebrated, celebrated, objectionable, objectionable, limb, limb,
conform, conform, irrationality, irrationality, pretentious, pretentious, conceal, conceal, redundant, redundant, pronounce, pronounce, generosity, generosity, deliberate, deliberate, trustworthy, trustworthy, frantic, frantic, disastrous, disastrous, adjacent, adjacent, provocative, provocative, offend, offend, thrust, thrust, tremendous, tremendous, imminent, imminent, conspiracy, conspiracy, faint, faint, astonish, astonish, descent, descent, gorgeous, gorgeous, ingenious, ingenious, assure, assure, confront, confront, grim, grim, startle, startle, drawback, drawback, ethical, ethical, indicate, indicate, conclusion, conclusion, blurt, blurt, awakening, awakening, inference, inference, critical, critical, statement, statement, initiative, initiative, self-conscious, self-conscious, ridicule, ridicule, expand, expand,
adolescence, adolescence, spoil, spoil, sensitive, sensitive, be liable to, be liable to, deviation, deviation, accomplishment, accomplishment, detect, detect, tolerance, tolerance, zealous, zealous, deprive, deprive, fulfill, fulfill, dread, dread, insightful, insightful, inquisitive, inquisitive, distract, distract, impair, impair, reluctant, reluctant, setback, setback, disclose, disclose, novel, novel, foster, foster, account for, account for, speculate, speculate, outcome, outcome, modest, modest, overwhelm, overwhelm, fade away, fade away, grateful, grateful, overconfident, overconfident, fall behind, fall behind, stance, stance, outstanding, outstanding, be preoccupied with, be preoccupied with, bring about, bring about, innate, innate, reinforce, reinforce, pause, pause, perceive, perceive, content, 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 discretion, discretion,
courageous, courageous, enthusiasm, enthusiasm, integrity, integrity, reflection, reflection, marvelous, marvelous, esteem, esteem, discipline, discipline, attain, attain, devote, devote, complacent, complacent, execute, execute, misconception, misconception, obstacle, obstacle, formulate, formulate, determined, determined, annoyance, annoyance, embrace, embrace, hold back, hold back, phenomenal, phenomenal, pursue, pursue, nasty, nasty, trivial, trivial, receptive, receptive, contradictory, contradictory, assume, assume, give in, give in, meditate, meditate, prompt, prompt, aspiration, aspiration, inherent, inherent, clutter, clutter, moderate, moderate, put off, put off, put oneself in others' shoes, put oneself in others' shoes, external, external, pessimism, pessimism, sabotage, sabotage, trap, trap, implicit, implicit, figure out, figure out,
acquaintance, acquaintance, concerted, concerted, bond, bond, empathy, empathy, mercilessly, mercilessly, respectful, respectful, suspicion, suspicion, quarrel, quarrel, get a big head, get a big head, forgiving, forgiving, interdependence, interdependence, altruism, altruism, courtesy, courtesy, disguise, disguise, very, very, humiliate, humiliate, hypocritical, hypocritical, popularity, popularity, intimate, intimate, reconcile, reconcile, companionship, companionship, accord, accord, reciprocal, reciprocal, conflict, 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 mutual, mutual, candid, candid, sentiment, sentiment, compromise, compromise, open up, open up, encounter, encounter, familiarity, familiarity, assimilate, assimilate, refresh, refresh, interpersonal, interpersonal, come across, acknowledge, acknowledge, take the initiative, take the initiative, correspond, correspond, dispute, dispute, court, court,
reside, reside, fabric, fabric, comprise, comprise, multitude, multitude, prejudice, prejudice, congestion, congestion, affluent, affluent, seizure, seizure, plight, plight, poverty, poverty, combination, combination, apathy, apathy, attribute, attribute, patriarchal, patriarchal, landlord, landlord, tenant, tenant, impoverished, impoverished, conscience, conscience, proportion, proportion, focal, focal, resistance, resistance, privatization, privatization, confine, 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 charity, charity, attachment, attachment, neglect, neglect, plague, plague, privilege, privilege, corruption, corruption, opposed, opposed, stand a chance, stand a chance, concurrent, concurrent, enormous, enormous, populous, populous, struggle, struggle, govern, govern, stagnant, stagnant, be prone to, be prone to, tangibly, tangibly, coordination, coordination,
apply, apply, requirement, requirement, inexperienced, inexperienced, humble, humble, reputation, reputation, resign, resign, vacant position, vacant position, substitution, substitution. Personnel, personnel. Self-motivated, self-motivated. Retirement, retirement. Perspective, perspective. Occupational, occupational. Vocational, vocational. On-site, on-site. Multitask, multitask. Obligate, obligate. Dedicated, dedicated. Qualified, qualified. Designate, designate. Subsidiary, subsidiary. On behalf of, on behalf of. Commend, commend. Certification, certification. Undertake, undertake. Indignity, indignity. Self-esteem, self-esteem. Embark on, embark on. Resident, resident. Unstable, unstable. Alienated, alienated. Ultimate, ultimate. Compile, compile. Consideration, consideration. Eminent, eminent. In charge of, in charge of. Distressed, distressed. Practitioner, practitioner. Stereotype, stereotype. Obscure, obscure.
Polarize, polarize. Transition, transition. Desperate, desperate. Nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts. Implement, implement. Overload, overload. Protest, protest. Compensate, compensate. Underlying, underlying. Drastic, drastic. Bribe, bribe. Fall apart, fall apart. Starvation, starvation. With regard to, with regard to. Pros and cons, pros and cons. Correlation, correlation. Apprehension, apprehension. Hostility, hostility. Trigger, trigger. Hinder, hinder. Marginalize, marginalize. Objection, objection. Justify, justify. Stimulus, stimulus. Attainment, attainment. Presume, presume. Unemployment, unemployment. Defense, defense. Surmount, surmount. Demonstrate, demonstrate. Run the risk of, run the risk of. Phase, phase. Opposition, opposition. Plagiarism, plagiarism. Circumstance, circumstance. Bizarre, bizarre. Inhibit, inhibit. Individual, individual. Intrude, intrude. Integrate, integrate.
Coverage, coverage. Commentary, commentary. Station, station. Sequence, sequence. Billboard, billboard. Circulation, circulation. Boycott, boycott. Interfere with, interfere with. mediate, mediate, influential, influential, unprecedented, unprecedented, overreport, overreport, overly, overly, highlight, highlight, manipulative, manipulative, reveal, reveal, identify, identify, obviously, obviously, strip, strip, attract, attract, subscribe, subscribe, informative, informative, public relations, public relations, pirate, pirate, prominently, prominently, reminder, reminder, issue, issue, anchor, anchor, restrain, restrain, linkage, linkage, publicity, publicity, knock off, knock off, contribute, contribute, profile, profile, keep up with, plot, plot, publication, publication, rationalize, rationalize, admit, admit, on a daily basis, on a daily basis.
Anthropology, anthropology, barbarian, barbarian, exotic, exotic, minority, minority, communal, communal, tardy, tardy, aristocracy, aristocracy, elaborate, elaborate, mythical, mythical, explicable, explicable, disrupt, disrupt, admire, admire, fundamental, fundamental, overlap, 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 admission, admission, domesticate, domesticate, stroll, stroll, venture, venture, incomparable, incomparable, savage, savage, collective, collective, heritage, heritage, clan, clan, ethnic, ethnic, indigenous, indigenous, tolerant, tolerant, legendary, legendary, awe, awe, conventional, conventional, discrimination, discrimination, forage, forage, pervade, pervade, represent, represent, embody, embody, aboriginal, aboriginal, perspective, perspective, thriving, thriving, sacrificial, sacrificial, primitive, primitive, consensus, consensus,